Four thrill-seeking friends travel to the Australian Outback to visit what locals claim to be a haunted farm. However, the fun adventure quickly turns into a fight for survival when an imposing killer stalks the group in his quest for revenge. One evening, in a rundown farmhouse, an intimidating figure holding a machete methodically searches a room. Underneath the floorboards, the frightened Jacko quietly moves along the crawl space, ensuring the tormentor doesn't hear him. Moments later, he's reunited with his terrified girlfriend Sally, who tearfully asks if their friend Toby is dead, so he sadly affirms that all their companions are gone. Even though the woman says that they should just hide until the killer leaves, Jacko insists that they need to find a weapon so they can defend themselves. However, just as the man emerges from the crawl space, the tormentor decapitates him with the blade and tosses his head at the screaming Sally. She tries to run away, but the killer attacks with his large machete, ending the woman's life. The next day, Jason sits by the pool with his pal Mick, and he smiles as he watches his girlfriend Natasha lying on a floaty in the water. Seconds later, the man suggests that they should all go on a road trip, but when his friend states he won't go anywhere alone with just the couple, the woman says she'll ask Melanie to come with them. While Natasha calls her friend, Mick tells Jason about a haunted estate in the Australian Outback called Charlie's Farm. He adds that legend has it that in the 1980s, the locals murdered the family that lived there. He suggests they head to the 100,000-acre property since his pal has always wanted to visit the eerie house. Jason immediately agrees to the plan, but he tells Mick not to tell the women about their destination until they arrive. The next day, Melanie asks where they're going, so the men lie and claim that they're headed to a place where they can go horseback riding and fishing. After driving for 5 hours, Natasha tells her boyfriend that she's hungry, so they decide to stop at the next town. At a bar, Mick discreetly goes around asking the patrons for information regarding Charlie's farm, but most people don't acknowledge his query, as if they're all avoiding the topic. Later, he approaches Blue, an elderly gentleman, who's sitting at the bar by himself. However, when the newcomer asks the local about Charlie's farm, the older man angrily tells him to stay away from the property, and adds that the friends should just get in their car and head back to where they came from. Mick wonders if the stories of backpackers going missing in the area are true, and another bar patron says that it's been happening for years. Seeing as they won't get any information from the unfriendly locals, the group heads out of the building. In the parking lot, the women confront the guys about Charlie's farm and why they want to go there. Jason insists he'll tell them everything once they find a place to camp out for the night, and Mick jokingly adds that they need to leave as soon as possible before Blue shoots them. One bar patron overhears the comment and says the old man's reaction was valid because he was there when the awful things happened in the estate. The man pleads with the group to choose another destination and to avoid the evil place at all costs. However, instead of heeding the locals' warning, Mick chooses to mock him and instigate a fight. Because of the disagreement, the patron changes his mind and gives the group directions to Charlie's farm. Before a fight breaks out, Jason intervenes between the two men and orders his friend to get in the car. Later, the men finally come clean about their plan to camp out at Charlie's farm. Even though Melanie seems okay with the plan, Natasha remembers the locals warning them to stay away from the estate. Eventually, Mick tells his friends the story he heard as a child about a couple named John and Meredith Wilson. In the 1980s, the husband and wife lived on the farm with their son Charlie, and rumors circulated that the patriarch killed backpackers traveling through the area for his family to eat. Decades ago, while the deranged couple sang and danced in the kitchen, their son Charlie rode a rocking horse next to their latest victim, Amber, who was tied to the bed. The distraught woman screamed for help, prompting the annoyed Meredith to tell her husband to end the captive's life. So, John headed to the bedroom and, in an insulting manner, informed Amber that all her friends were dead. Then, the delusional man told the prisoner that they should keep their romantic relationship a secret from his jealous wife, so the furious woman reminded her captor that he tied her down to the bed and took advantage of her. Moments later, Charlie, who had a disfigured face and protruding backbone, headed out of the room to run farm errands for his mother. When Amber asked what the man planned on doing to her, she listened in horror as he calmly explained that the family's about to have her for dinner. In the present, Melanie laughs and says it's just a campfire horror story, but Jason thinks it's all true, given how the bar patrons reacted when they asked about the farm. That same night decades ago, After the Wilson family had finished devouring Amber, they heard an angry mob arrive outside their house. John grabbed his rifle and went out to the porch to confront Blue and his armed companions. The townspeople accused the couple of murdering and eating the backpackers who've worked on the farm over the years since they've all gone missing. The farmer denied the accusation and insisted that the stories they heard were just nasty rumors. When he'd had enough of Meredith's aggressive arguing, Blue pulled the trigger, instantly killing John. Mortified, the woman ran back through the house and eventually escaped with Charlie through the backyard. In the present, Mick says he doesn't know what happened to the mother and child, but theorizes that Blue might have an idea since he was there. He adds that according to urban legend, the angry mob either buried the dead bodies they found in the house or left them outside for the wild pigs to eat. The friends wonder if Charlie's still alive, and Mick says he was either caught and killed by the locals or he could have died in the outback years ago. However, he adds that some people believe that the family's son is still alive somewhere. Natasha asks why the men want to investigate the property, so her boyfriend says he just wants to look around in case they find something valuable. When the others notice Natasha's apprehension, they assure her that they can leave at any time if they don't like the place. The woman says she'll go with the group if they want to continue the trip, but she makes sure that they're aware that she has a bad feeling about the situation. The next day, the friends continue on their journey, but realize that the bar patron didn't give them specific enough directions to the farm. So, Jason calls his friend, former professional boxer Tony, because he thinks the man might know where the infamous estate is. Although the athlete hesitates to give Jason directions because he's heard disturbing stories about the place, he eventually divulges the information as long as they promise to be careful and call him the moment they return to town, so he knows they're safe. Soon, the group arrives at the edge of the property, but because they can't open the locked gate, they decide to leave the jeep and walk the rest of the way. After hours of aimless meandering through the vast estate, the friends finally spot the house in the middle of a clearing, much to their relief. Inside the rundown abode, both men excitedly celebrate that they're finally exploring the haunted house, but Natasha counters that she finds it creepy. Meanwhile, Mick helps Melanie open a door, and she spots an old teddy bear on the floor, which the man believes might have belonged to Charlie. When her friend says she wants to keep the toy, Natasha doesn't think it's a good idea and discourages the men from taking anything else from the house. Because she feels uneasy in the creepy abode, the woman insists that they all sleep in the same room tonight, much to Mick's disappointment. Decades ago, Blue and the other townspeople entered the Wilson home after Meredith and Charlie escaped, and they happened upon Amber's mutilated body in the bedroom and found the corpses of the other missing backpackers in a closet. Meanwhile, the mother told her son to hide in the barn and not to come out because the awful men were going to catch him. Eventually, the angry mob caught up to Meredith, and they proceeded to beat and interrogate her for Charlie's whereabouts. However, the woman lied and claimed that her child perished 12 months ago. As the boy hid in the shadows, he silently watched the townspeople mercilessly beat and torture his mother to death. In the present, Jason asks the others if they want to go exploring, but even his best friend won't dare to go wandering in the haunted estate in the middle of the night. Hours later, while Melanie cuddles with the teddy bear, she groggily sees a dark, looming figure by the doorway. However, the woman thinks she's just having a dream and immediately goes back to sleep. The next day, the friends realize they slept in until noon, prompting Jason to motivate his lazy companions to get up so they can start exploring. Seconds later, Mick alerts the others about the arrival of two campers heading toward the house. The newcomers, Gordon and his girlfriend Alyssa, share that they heard about the estate from fellow backpackers whom they ran into 4 weeks ago. Jason wonders if they might still be on the property, and Gordon says he isn't sure but that the last time they spoke, they were headed to Charlie's farm. Since they haven't had breakfast yet, Natasha invites the couple to join them for the meal. While the group eats their food, the women bond over the fact that their significant others dragged them to the spooky location. Moments later, Melanie searches for the teddy bear in her bag, hoping to show it to Alyssa. However, she can't find it anywhere, so Natasha asks the men if they stole the toy as a prank. Perplexed, Jason and Mick swear they never touched it, and the latter jokes that it probably came alive last night and walked back to the bedroom. So, Melanie shares that she saw a dark figure by the doorway last night, but the men dismissively brush it aside as a bad dream. Later, the group splits into 3 pairs so they can cover more ground since they're leaving tomorrow morning. Eventually, Mick and Melanie happen upon the opening to a mine shaft, and they note the putrid stench coming from the hole. As they peer into the dark crack in the ground, the woman theorizes that there could be an animal carcass at the bottom, explaining the awful smell. Concurrently, the other 4 arrive at a clearing near a creek, and they agree to meet up back there in a few hours. Unbeknownst to the group, a stalker lurks behind the trees and watches them from a distance. Later that afternoon, Mick and Melanie reach a tranquil lake, and the eager man flirtily asks the lady to join him in the water. Meanwhile, Gordon and Alyssa come upon a barn with a locked door, so they head toward the back to find another way in. In a junk pile outside the building, the man picks up an axe, excitedly swings it around, and says they need to come back for it later. Eventually, they enter the barn through an unlocked door, and Alyssa immediately notices the smell of carcasses. In a room, the couple finds a bed, and although it looks old and disheveled, the woman wonders if someone's been sleeping in it recently. Seeing the scared look on his girlfriend's face, Gordon says they should probably head back and tell the others what they saw, much to her relief. However, just as the man steps out of the barn, someone forcefully swings the axe into his chest, ending his life. Terrified, Alyssa screams and immediately closes and locks the door, but the imposing killer, revealed to be the adult Charlie, easily kicks it open. Eventually, the murderer discovers the woman hiding behind steel drums and grabs her by the hair. To stop Alyssa from screaming and thrashing, Charlie knocks her unconscious by slamming her head against a tractor. Then, the sadistic killer lays the woman on the ground and crushes her head under the tractor wheel. Concurrently, Jason and Natasha find a different barn in another part of the estate, but she chooses to stay outside while her boyfriend enters the spooky building. In town, the worried Tony can't shake off the bad feeling he has about his friends camping out on Charlie's farm. So, even though his wife tells him to wait 2 days for a phone call from Jason stating that they're okay, the boxer says he's heading to the estate to make sure everyone's alright. Meanwhile, as Mick and Melanie enjoy their fun dip in the lake, the woman spots the towering Charlie watching them from the water's edge. Although she begs her companion to stay and refrain from confronting the terrifying stranger, Mick wades out of the lake and orders the man to leave. Suddenly, the murderer expertly swings his machete, slicing off Mick's member. Then, the deranged killer uses the severed organ to end the helpless man's life. The frightened woman screams and tries to evade the attacker through the woods. Unfortunately, the surprisingly swift murderer easily catches up to Melanie and slams her down to the ground. Then, the sadistic Charlie grabs and pulls her lower jaw clean off, ending her life. As the sun sets, Natasha worries about her boyfriend, who still hasn't emerged from the barn, especially since he doesn't answer when she calls out his name. At the main house, Tony sees that there's nobody there, but he spots the friends' names on the wall, confirming that they stayed the night. In the barn, the distraught woman calls out for her lover, and she eventually finds him hiding under a table. When she angrily asks why he didn't answer, the scared man tells his girlfriend to be quiet because he saw someone else inside the barn. Moments later, the enormous man passes by their hiding spot, prompting Jason to place his hand over Natasha's mouth to keep her from making any more noise. While the couple searches for a way out, Tony arrives at the barn and thinks the hulking figure in the shadows is his friend Jason. However, when Charlie attacks, a fierce battle ensues between the two men, and the boxer uses his skills to initially overpower the killer despite the size disadvantage. Eventually, Jason emerges from the hiding spot to try and help Tony, but the murderer ends the boxer's life by ripping his throat open. Then, Charlie grabs Jason and finishes him off with a knife to the throat, and with his final breath, the man orders Natasha to run away. The terrified woman tries to escape, but the killer catches her hiding inside a car and knocks her out. Later, Natasha regains consciousness inside a wooden box in an underground chamber. She quickly removes the tethers on her legs and neck and kicks the planks on one side of the box to escape. As the woman searches for a way out, she discovers the festering bodies of Charlie's previous victims. Moments later, Natasha waits for the killer to move further down the tunnel before climbing the ladder to the mine shaft opening. To her surprise, Blue helps her out of the hole and asks if Charlie is alive and responsible for what happened to her friends. So, she confirms that the killer is in the mine shaft, and that they need to leave immediately. The old man orders Natasha to get in the truck, but the murderer catches up to the pair and throws an axe into Blue's back, ending his life. Realizing she has no other choice but to fight back, the woman grabs the old man's rifle and shoots Charlie in the chest, and the deranged killer falls to the ground. Natasha tries to shoot him again, but the rifle jams, so she tosses it in the tall grass. Determined to escape, the woman tries to open Blue's truck, but to her horror, Charlie survives the gunshot and is standing right behind her. Then, the killer impales Natasha with the rifle and pulls it back out through the other side, disemboweling her. After the woman falls to the ground, the victorious Charlie swings her lifeless body over his shoulder and makes his way back to the mine shaft.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.